Hello, class. I wanted to go over a few items that will be important on our first week of drawing. And I wanted to talk about some works of art and go over things about drawing. We often think about having a lot of gray area. And it's true, there is a lot of subjectivity in drawing, but I also want to clarify some issues and make you guys feel more comfortable that there are very clear and tangible things that we can understand about drawing and its techniques. So let me show you some images quickly before we go into talking about some drawing techniques. So this woodblock print, or you could call it a drawing, you may have seen before, and it's by a Japanese artist named Hokusai. And he worked in Japan. He was actually a graphic artist, and he made manga, and he worked in the 1800s. And one of the brilliant things about his work is he was a master draftsman and printer. And you can see some of his drawings here. They're really magnificent drawings. This would be an ink drawing on paper. And he has a magnificent sense of subtlety, and his line work is really extraordinary. But apart from his more formal works, he also produced a lot of books that were, we would call them manga today, but some of them were how to draw, essentially, and give us clues onto his process. And you can see in this image, he's drawing a bird. And if you look closely, he's showing you or his students the basic shapes that are underlying the forms here, and really beautifully and simply. So you can see in the page on the right, those ovals that he has bundled together and then added detail to form this bird. And similarly, on this illustration here, he was drawing cattle and bison and building them out of interlocking circles or spheres. Now, this comes out of a long tradition in Japanese art, and Japan has one of the great drawing traditions in the world. And what you see here are three basic shapes, and this is from a scroll from the 1600s, I believe, and it's called The Universe. And as you may gather, he is implying, this artist, that the universe is essentially the world around us of everyday objects is made up of shapes, and you could simply boil them down to three essential shapes that when we're drawing, we often will look to this, this idea of how to look at a very complex world and look at objects and things and find their essence and try to find the building blocks of what makes an object, a person, or just everyday objects in the world around us. So today, we're going to be looking at two of the most important shapes that appear in drawing, and particularly in our drawing over the semester. You're going to find these shapes over and over, the oval and the ellipse. Now, in this magnificent drawing of a horse by Peter Paul Rubens, it has an incredible sense of structure and form to it. And if we were to set about sketching this, as he did, we would find that we would very quickly could break down the essence of the structure of this animal as a series of interlocking spheres and circles, much like the Hokusai manga showed us. Similarly, when we're drawing people, people are also, curvilinear and round, and we can very easily, when we set about to drawing, try to understand the very complex form of the human anatomy in this way. Now, this magnificent still life, Dutch still life from the 1600s, you can see it is a very complex and incredibly, if you were set about to paint something like this, it would be very challenging. And one of the first things I'm going to ask you to do when you set about to draw anything is, what's the essence of the shapes? What are some of the biggest shapes? And what's the nature of them? And you can see essentially It's made up of a series of ovals and ellipses. Even the shellfish that's on the table effectively are a series of ovals and ellipses. Similarly, on this very complex still life, the table is littered with all kinds of, after a meal, it looks like they're having a nice smoke after dinner. But this is, if essentially, almost everything on this table is a series of ovals and circles with a few lines in. And we can see, as we're going to be drawing over the next week in particular, objects from around our home, that we really can draw so many things with, once we master getting circles and ellipses. For example, if we were to set about to draw this simple bird here, one of the things we would do is ask ourselves, what is the essence of the forms here? And what is the largest part of the form? And what we could do is think of it as a series of ellipses as well. Remember that the feathers and the texture, those are all surface details. So for particularly in the beginning, I'm going to ask you to think about essences and what is the basic nature of something, and look past the texture for now. We'll get into detail later.